So I gave it to him, the first time that I met him, I gave it to him. And, you know, I tell him all the time that, without him, I probably would not still be breathing.
What's going on, guys? It's your boy, Tom Talk Trash, and stand back with another video. This time, I'm joined by Jodie Gilly from Pro Wrestling Insiders. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited.
So if we take this back to the beginning, where do you first discover pro wrestling as a fan?
Ooh, it's been pretty recent, actually. I was aware of wrestling when I was a kid because my brother used to watch it, and didn't really get into it until me and my husband started dating about 6 years ago. And the first match that I ever remember watching was Bray Wyatt and Matt Hardy in the Ultimate Deletion match.
Okay.
And I kind of got hooked on both of them at that point, and I'm like, this is wrestling? Like, because, growing up, you remember Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair and Undertaker. And, this was that match was so different from what I kind of knew of. And I was like, okay, he'd been trying to talk me into watching wrestling with him. And I'm like, I don't know. And, watched that match. And I was like, okay, I dig it. I can watch it. And, that's kind of where it all started.
Okay. So you talk about the way I'll phrase it is watching pro wrestling for love sort of thing. So do you think if you'd never met your husband, you would be a pro wrestling fan right now?
No, not at all.
Honestly? Okay. So when you are watching, so when he first broaches the idea, did you sort of, I don't want to say brush it off, but do you know what I mean? Did you sort of say, like, really?
No, it was just kind of like, maybe at some point, we had kind of just started dating. We weren't really, spending the night at each other's houses or things like that. So it wasn't really, we would go out and do other things instead of watching wrestling. We go out to eat or go out to play arcade video games at Tappers downtown. And, we would just find other things to do. And eventually he was just like, you have to watch this, and just kind of sat me down, and that was it. That was that match.
So you talk about it being that match and things like that. So do you have a love for what I would call the outlandish side of wrestling because of that match? And can you watch technical wrestling because of that match?
I enjoy it all. I definitely, I'm a horror fan. And, being a nurse too, I'm used to kind of outlandish things.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Top things. So that's more of the stuff that I gravitate to. But, I appreciate technical wrestling. I'm a big fan of Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns and, Seth Rollins and those people that just absolutely nail it in the ring. But yeah, I kind of gravitate towards characters like Bray.
Okay.
I like horror movies.
Fair enough. Just quickly, best horror movie?
Ooh. Definitely the best one I've seen recently is Host.
Ooh.
On Shudder.
Fair enough. So
we got to have the writer and producer of Host, Jed Shepard, on our show recently, and was planning on it being like a 30-minute, how did you come up with it, blah, blah, blah. And we ended up talking to him for almost 2 hours.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I've been there a few times.
He's such a nice dude. Like, we just kept on talking about horror movies and video games and, and that actually is, I told him the other day, actually, that's probably my favorite interview we've ever done.
That's really nice to hear. So you talked about your work within content creation for Pro Wrestling Insider. How does that come about?
So it started the first time that I met Bray Wyatt in person. And I had written him this letter because 2019 was to put it shortly, it was a hell of a year, and there were a lot of ups and downs throughout the entire year, mostly downs. And, we had a really tough year. And right in the middle of that, is when he came back to TV with the Fun House and the Fiend. And, he just kind of gave me that joy that I was missing in my life. And yeah, so I wrote him this entire letter because I'm much better in written form than I am in verbal form.
I'm the same.
So I gave it to him, the first time that I met him, I gave it to him. And I tell him all the time that, without him, I probably would not still be breathing at this moment, because everything that we were going through that year was just, and he just gave me something to smile about the entire year. So after that first time that I met him back in January of 2020, in Evansville, Indiana, right before SmackDown, I got approached by Jeff and Joe from Insiders Pro Wrestling and asked if I would come on for an interview to talk about meeting him and kind of what that experience was like. And everybody really liked it so much, and that kind of turned into, why don't we do a show that's all about Bray? And asked me to come on and kind of host that. And that's become our weekly thing. And the rest is history as far as that goes.
You talked about there being such a fan of Bray Wyatt and him saving your life, in your own words. How has doing content on him, and critiquing might not be the right word, but I know what I'm trying to say, basically having to look at his work through a different lens. How has that changed your fandom of Bray Wyatt?
I think it's made it deeper, if that makes sense. Like,
yeah,
there's
definitely.
always that surface level, Bray's great, he's awesome, he's such a nice guy. But, being able to kind of, I don't want to say pick apart everything he's been doing, but really dive deep into, those promos that he's doing and what they mean. And, being able to meet him a few more times along the way, and have conversations with him, and, have him follow me back on Twitter, like all of these little deeper pieces. I think it just gives you a deeper appreciation for what a beautiful mind he has for creativity.
What about like your fandom in general? How has that changed working as a part of wrestling media in certain cases?
I think it makes me look at lots of things. It makes me look at everything in that lens of, oh, that's a good moment to talk about. You're picking out those really special, moments, like, Cody winning the Rumble, or Sami Zayn turning on Roman, or, even Seth turning on Roman at WrestleMania. And, you try to, pick out those special moments that are going to give you that longer piece of content that you can talk about for a long time.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying there. So what is like your current consumption of wrestling then? I imagine it's a SmackDown because of Bray Wyatt, but what do you watch wrestling wise?
I definitely, obviously, I do watch all the WWE shows. I watch Raw, SmackDown, all the pay-per-views. I will watch Impact from time to time. I watch Ring of Honor from time to time because I really, really, really like Vincent. So I've kind of been keeping my eye. It's more keeping outside of WWE, keeping my eye on certain wrestlers. But yeah, my passion is for WWE. So I
That's fair. That's fair. You talked about there your passion for WWE and obviously Bray Wyatt. Do you ever, because obviously things have changed in WWE over the last few months, Vince is back in the company, may not be involved in creative. We can't confirm or deny that. Do you worry about how your fandom's going to be if things change with Bray again?
No, because whether or not things change with him, I'm always going to be a fan of him as a person, as a man, especially, having that blessing and honor to actually know him. And, you know, I'm gonna be a fan of him first. And I honestly, I don't think Vince is gonna have anything to do with creative. I think this is all about selling personally, but
I hope you're right, but the how do I say this? What's the word I'm looking for? The pessimist, I think that like the worry guts and like the you know what I mean, like the worst case scenario in my brain. Does that make sense?
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I hope you're right.
I think that's the point that it did run through my mind, like, oh my gosh, what if he does this again? And that's the point that, I remind myself to trust Bray. Bray has been very good at, to put it not lightly, taking shit and turning into birthday cake. So
fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. I can fully, totally understand. So you talked about meeting the insiders through. How is your chemistry different to when you're on camera to when you're off, maybe?
It's not, honestly. Me and Jeff and Joe are, like three siblings.
Okay.
I haven't actually been able to meet Joe in person. I have met Jeff. And the chemistry that we have on screen is just as awesome as it is off screen. We literally are, genuinely really good friends.
No, that's cool. So like when it does come to creating content, how do you get yourself in the zone to do a show in that sense? How are you like, okay, I'm about to go on camera. How do you get your brain into that mode? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. I don't think I really have to with Abby's. Just because it's so easy. Bray makes it so easy to talk about him. Obviously, throughout the week, leading up to Abby's, I'm doing my, research, grabbing my screenshots. We have a segment now about fan art. So I'll be going through social media and picking, pieces of art out. Jeff is the technical guru. So I will send all of that to him and he will, build all the slides and everything. And I love being on camera with him. We have such a good dynamic. But actually getting ready like right before the show, I don't feel like I have to, just because we've been doing it for over 2 years and we love it. I feel like things you really have a passion about, you don't have to psych yourself up for. That's what it's like at work. Like I don't have to psych myself up to go to work because I love it.
You talked about your work a few times being a nurse, right? How do you how do I phrase this question? Like, do you look at wrestling differently because of your nursing background? Maybe.
Definitely. Absolutely. It doesn't, my particular area that I'm working in right now, I'm a director of nursing for a drug and alcohol detox hospital. Mm-hmm. So that particular area, is not relatable to wrestling. Obviously
in certain cases,
like I've come across patients that are wrestling fans and we've had conversations about Bray and that's been a good way for me to connect with them, which is kind of interesting. Normally it's the other way around. But being a nurse before a leader, I was a nurse before I became a manager and a director, and there are many, many instances that, I'll be watching a match and my nurse brain will go off. That Hell in a Cell match between Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins, when he came out and took that jacket off and, that physically hurt my stomach.
I can imagine.
I was going like, oh my gosh, please don't do this.
The example. Sorry.
Cody, I didn't know a lot about Cody before that because obviously I'm a new wrestling fan. He earned my respect that night. And I'm a Cody fan.
Fair.
Because, and when Roman left to go, when his leukemia came back up, he earned my respect that night, because that's hard. I've worked with cancer patients, and it's very emotional, and the emotions that all of them were going through at that particular moment were real. And it makes me connect with them a little differently, and they help me connect with the patients a little differently.
The example I was hoping to get your thoughts on was I don't know if you've seen this, being not so much of an AEW fan, but the Jon Moxley Hangman incident.
Oh, and did he slice his head open?
No, I'm talking about, when Jon Moxley clotheslined him.
I didn't see it.
Oh, fair enough then. Fair enough. I can't ask you about that. Fair enough. That's fair. So basically, when it comes to WWE and stuff, like, you talked about your fandom never. Do you think, because is your husband still a wrestling fan?
Yes.
Do you think if his fandom started to wane, do you think yours would wane?
No, not at this point. There actually was a period when Bray was gone, that he didn't watch wrestling very much anymore, because Bray is his favorite. Bray's always been one of his favorites. So, when Bray was gone, he really didn't watch wrestling that much. I still did,
Okay.
just I love Bray, don't get me wrong, but there's other stuff going on there too. Were the shows a little bit more lackluster in that period of time? Yes, they weren't as entertaining as they were, but when Triple H took over, I felt like a switch got flipped.
Definitely, I felt that as well.
You felt the improvement almost immediately.
So what was that dynamic like, where you talked about when you two first started dating, him maybe making wrestling a priority in certain cases? What was that dynamic like, where you were maybe making wrestling a priority and he wasn't?
He always, he would always watch Abby's, because he enjoyed talking about Bray, and we would bounce theories off of each other. But I think because I was in a routine with the insiders, with doing the watch alongs, and he would come and watch big pay-per-views and we'd talk about that. But as far as like the weekly shows, he just wouldn't watch Raw or SmackDown. Occasionally he would. Our house is so busy most of the time that our dynamic really didn't change much, honestly.
Yeah. Fair enough. As we look at wrapping this up, because I do want to be respectful of your time, we're going to do I'm just respectful of my guest time. Do you know what I mean? We're going to do a quick segment that I call generic questions. Those of you that have seen my interviews before will know this is where I ask my guests the questions they might get asked on social media quite regularly, such as their favorite match, favorite pay-per-view, favorite wrestler's theme, favorite tag team, and favorite wrestler of all time. Basically, now
you can call me Abby. Everybody else does.
Fair enough. Now Abby will have a place to go, be like, look, I've answered this. Please go watch this. So, what's your favorite match of all time?
All time, man, that's a tough one. There's been so many. I'm gonna go off the grain a little bit and say that Hell in a Cell match with Seth and Cody.
I'm really curious to know why, because you said your nurse brain went off at a certain point. So why was that your favorite match?
Because you couldn't take your eyes off of it. And the longer that match went on, because I think it's because I'm a nurse, the longer that match went on, the more respect you had for Cody and Seth for, being willing to do that match too. And at least, try to do it safely. So, yeah, the longer that match went on, the more respect I got for Cody. And I was just like, man, this dude is special.
What about your favorite pay-per-view of all time?
I mean, you naturally want to go to Extreme Rules when Bray returned.
Yeah.
And I think honestly the pop for that was so good that you have to pick that one.
Okay. Well, again, I can imagine the answer, but why does that one speak to you?
Because it was different. I mean, obviously, we kind of all suspected, with the teases and the White Rabbit that Bray was going to come back. We just didn't know when. And they really, really made you believe that he wasn't at that pay-per-view. Everything was like swirling around like, oh, he's going to be at Extreme Rules. It's going to be Extreme Rules. And then the show ended like it normally would. And you're just sitting there going, like, if you watch our reaction, we're going, what? What just happened? And then the lights went out and everybody flipped. So that moment where they literally let you think the show was over and they were like, no, just kidding.
We all forget that's a Triple H trick. We used to do that in NXT quite a bit. We all forget that sometimes, I think.
But, very close second is the WrestleMania from last year that Cody returned. Because it's getting very, very hard now to shock people. But that moment shocked people. They had no idea. Nobody knew. And everybody lost their minds. I mean, that moment was big enough of a shock as Brock breaking Undertaker's streak. Like, you were just sitting there going, oh, it's Cody. Is that Cody? Is it really Cody? Like, nobody had any idea. And when WWE can pull off a moment like that to actually shock people, I'm all in.
I fully agree with that. What about your favorite wrestler's theme of all time?
I am partial, obviously I'm partial to Cult Leader Bray's theme because that's the version of him that I fell in love with. But I got to go with Cody again. That theme is just something else. It's brilliant. Bray's theme is now with Shatter is really good too. There's so many good ones. I like Roman's, that he's been using. I think that one's great. I think all of Seth Rollins, themes have been great, but Cody's is special.
They're both up there. I love both those. What about your favorite tag team of all time?
Favorite tag team. I'm gonna have to go with the New Day.
I feel like I'm asking. Sorry.
Just because it's fun. It's different.
What was your thoughts on them going down to NXT?
I'm okay with it because now they're bringing that fun to another show. That's great. And if that's where they're going to be used more effectively, I'm fine with it. And they are just so funny that, again, it's bringing those moments that you don't normally see, those moments of humor into a wrestling show and really making it entertaining. Yes, it's sports, but it's also entertaining and bringing those little funny moments where you can just sit and laugh. It's, that's great. So I love the New Day. I think they're fantastic.
I always feel like I have to say I agree to my guests, but I do really agree with that one. I think they're brilliant. And then finally, as we wrap this up, I think the answer might be pretty obvious, but who is your favorite wrestler of all time?
Bray.
Yeah, I think that was coming.
Because there's nobody like him. Yes, he is, you can call him the modern day Undertaker. And obviously we had that moment where Taker passed the torch, but Bray is so different from Undertaker in a lot of ways because he's got that. He really does have a beautiful mind. He has a knack for noticing things. And the more I've gotten to know him, the more appreciative I've become of that mind. Like he remembers tiny little insignificant details about me that I forgot, he's mentioned something that I've sent him in a DM like 6 months ago. I'm like, how the hell do you remember that?
Mm,
He sees a lot more than we think he does on social media.
mm.
He sees everything. Everything.
You talked about there, obviously, Bray being your favorite. Do you think the personal relationship you've cultivated with him helps you to, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, enjoy his work more. I'll put it that way.
Oh, absolutely. Because I've seen that genius mind of his work, in real time and in front of my face. So, and he's just one of those rare people, and I think it's rare for a celebrity, if you want to call him that. It's rare for people that are famous to have the connection with his fans that he does.
Mm.
Bray is very much like that. My favorite singer, Caleb Johnson, he's very much like that. I mean, he really connects with his fans. He has a bond with them that I don't think anybody else in wrestling does. Obviously, Sammy's very over with the fans, but as far as that intimate personal connection, he's the only person I know of that has that bond. And I think I forget who said it to Cody. Somebody said to Cody that was something that he was missing, was that obviously he has a connection with the fans, but
I
that
think it was on, because I do know what you're talking about. I think it was on Anderson.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and I would agree with that. Like, he's over with the fans love him, but he's got to get that personal, intimate connection with them. He's got to be in them more, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And there's people in WWE that or have guest starred in WWE that have come in and done little things that I know from, not from Bray, from other people that are horrible to the fans.
I fully get what you're saying there. Yeah. But as we look at wrapping this up, the question I end all my interviews on is basically, what is a piece of content you want to be remembered for that you've created? And then what is a piece that you're like, don't remember that? I've grown a lot since then.
I mean, you go back to early episodes that we did on the Insiders, and we were fumbling and trying to find our footing and trying to figure out the best way to work things. And we've grown a lot since we started those first shows, and there's really nothing that I'm not proud of. That was, we were trying to find out who we were, and we've grown since then, but everybody has a past, and I don't have any problem with people watching, the old stuff. What I want to be remembered for is, having that platform for Bray Wyatt, for people to come and talk about Bray and talk about theories and have that open conversation with, that we're, we all have different opinions, even between Jeff and Dom and myself. We all have different opinions about Bray. And, I said this to Dom a couple of weeks ago, actually. One of my favorite things about him is that, he may have a different opinion, but, there's no judgment there. There's no animosity. There's no, well, you're wrong about that. Or, we may have different opinions on something, but we respect each other, and we still love each other, and that's important for me to have in our community. We've really built a positive community of Insiders fans, that, and particularly Abby's fans, that they all have different opinions, but they don't pick on each other for it. They don't bash each other for it. They just talk like friends, talk like family, because that's what we call them, our Insiders family. We're all family with each other, and we've really created that friendly atmosphere, positive atmosphere, that I really just think that social media nowadays doesn't have anymore. It used to be, but every social media platform has become so toxic, and it's about people bashing each other as opposed to loving each other. And that's not what we were here to do. You know, we're here to love each other, and no matter what. And that's what I want to be remembered for, is having that positive community.
That's really nice to hear. And I hope, and from everything that I've seen from Insiders, I think you will be remembered for that. But as we wrap this up, where can the good people find you and all your content?
So we are on YouTube on Insiders Pro Wrestling, Abby's Window, my show, where we have beginning segment is talking about Caleb Johnson, who's my favorite singer. I've met him several times. Little segment called Caleb's Corner, where we talk about what he's doing and things that he's got coming up. Then we spend most of the time talking about Bray and discussing theories and where it's going, what we got, what we think we're going to get next. There's been some amazing theories on what's going on right now. I've got one that's coming on Monday that's going to blow everybody's minds. And then the ending segment is Abby's artwork. Where we show different fan art of Bray, which is awesome. I love seeing what everybody out there has drawn. So Insiders Pro Wrestling, we're on all social media platforms. So Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube.
It's well worth checking out, guys. So if you guys like this video, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Tom Talk Trash. Follow me on Twitter @Tom Talk Trash, and I will see you in the next one. A goodbye now.